Now, Shaney, it's 2017. There's plenty of games, old and new, that have come out recently, but one that has particularly caught our eye because it's both old and new is Final Fantasy XII: The Zodiac Age. Now, this game recently came out a couple of weeks back, and came out many moons ago in Japan as the Final Fantasy XII International Zodiac Job Class system. And the irony is that
it was only in Asia.
It was only in Asia, so it was international by definition, but not quite. But now we finally have it. There's been a few changes, and there's also some familiarity. So, what do you think, Shane?
If you haven't touched like a newer version of Final Fantasy sort of 13 or even of 15, it's going to be something very different to you coming from, I guess, 9 and further back. It's actually active and also free open world. It's basically almost like an MMO if you played any kind of MMO. The system itself is done very well, but it was still an experiment back in its time.
Definitely. Especially when it comes to the combat system, it seemed to bridge the gap between the limitations of the ATB gauge that we saw in previous games, and then kind of made fights a lot more frantic and dynamic looking, which is further expanded on in games like 13 and 15. So it was a very massive transitional time for the series, and especially with some of the latest changes with the Zodiac Job Class system, where the game in the previous initially released version that we got, over 10 years ago, kind of restricted characters to just the one job class.
Now, it was very much like you're this person, you're supposed to be doing this kind of like role. So it had like license boards is the way they knew like leveled up in skills. So you had only one license board that you can actually do. Whereas the Zodiac system is actually basically a whole new class system. So you can actually choose a class to actually, have a whole new like license board too. The issue with that though is that there's still like character specifications in that one character is very much suited for a role. Even though maybe you choose to not do it for another role.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at their stats in particular, the writing's kind of on the wall, and it's not as kind of open-ended as, say, Final Fantasy 3 or 5. Like, they try, but you can definitely kind of tell that they wanted to further expand the license boards and the roles and some of the stat bonuses and things like that. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's like certain characters are suited for particular things.
Just go be a healer.
Go be a healer, it's fine. Like, do whatever you want. But aside from that, everything from the graphical changes, I mean, like, the environments seem a lot more sparse than they were before, because, I mean, we're not in the PlayStation 2 age anymore. There's a lot more things you can cover on screen at once, a lot more resources to deal with. Finally, Vaughn's abs are fixed. Fran's butt looks a lot more like it pops out a bit more, and Balthia's Sama looks a lot more manly. So if you're looking for a graphical update, if you're looking for some of the trimmings of the Zodiac Job Class system, which is definitely something that you might have missed over the years, considering Square Enix didn't release it, then I reckon you're going to enjoy the Zodiac Age.
There is still some weaknesses to this game. The speed up option is actually a really good improvement because the game itself was slow.
Makes it look like you're playing like a Benny Hill where everyone's just running.
That and I guess almost like you're actually playing at a speed that you want to be playing at, just because like the battles was always slow and even movement was always slow. So the speed up function is really good add-on. The music is actually been remastered, so there's a lot of really nice tracks there. If you actually have never touched 12, it's a really good place to jump onto. If you have, and you don't really want to go back to it, I wouldn't recommend because it hasn't aged well in like the combat system way. But that said, it's still a very good Final Fantasy game.